All right, notes part 1, new unit, Athens, and let's get right into it, starting with the government. So, first thing to know, Athens is very different from Sparta. They are like polar opposites. It is something that Sparta and Athens actually don't get along at all. Athens is located on the coast of the Aegean Sea, which is a strategic location. And let's get my map going. I feel like I never have it ready. So while it's loading, I'll keep talking. So strategic location means that where it is, there was strategy where they formed the city. And Sparta did the same thing. Sparta's location was strategic as well because it was in the middle of nowhere and Sparta didn't want to be near anyone. All right, so this takes us deep into the heart of Athens, Greece. So let me zoom out. So the location of Athens is strategic. It's like right on the coast. Sparta is over here. I could do the "this is Sparta" joke, but I kind of just did. So yeah. So the location of Athens is strategic. It is right off the coast of the Aegean Sea, which is right over there. Okay, Athens at first was ruled by kings, but then around 750 BCE, nobles, merchants, and artisans decided, having kings stink. Let's change the government. So already you see a huge difference between Athens and Sparta. Athens is like, ooh, new idea. Let's go with that. Sparta is like, new idea stinks. Pound on desk. So Athens sets up a type of government at first that is called an oligarchy. And an oligarchy is the form of government where only certain people have a say, like a very, very, very few people. So disagreements start happening in Athens over who's going to be able to own land. Now, the nobles are the ones that own the land, the rich people, and the middle class and lower class are like, we want to say in the government, it's not fair. And the nobles are like, we don't want an uprising. Let's change our government. So there's another huge difference. Athens is willing to change. All right, so the first guy that says, I have an idea of how we should do it is Draco. And when I say Draco, I don't mean Draco Malfoy from Harry Potter. But it might help you remember because just like Draco from Harry Potter, Draco in ancient Greece is a big old jerk. His reforms are way too harsh. He makes changes that are way too strict. Some of his laws that are way too harsh that says that if you cannot pay your bills, you then become a slave of the person you own money. And if you steal, it is death. So these punishments are way too harsh. It leads to revolution. People take to the streets. Down goes Draco. He is killed. And the person leading the charge is the new leader, and his name is Solon. So I'm going to be referring to this chart at the bottom of the notes as we go on, just so it's not too overwhelming. So Draco's reforms were way too harsh. Laws included making someone a slave if they couldn't pay their bills. So People Revolt. Solon leads the revolt. Down goes Draco, and we're now at leader number 2. So Solon repeals all the laws of Draco. That means he gets rid of them and sets up rules for how his government should work. Now, this is what's known as a constitution. It's really important you understand this because when we today hear the word constitution, we think, oh, the Constitution, like America and rights and stuff. That's not what all constitutions are. The word constitution means rules for how the government will work. You could have a constitution that says, horribly awful things in it and have horribly awful laws. It's still a constitution. It's just a bad constitution. So Solon says we need rules for how our government's going to work, and his constitution is the first one ever written in the world. He's the first person that says, hey, we should write down how we want our government to work. Here's what Solon does. He says, there's only so much land that you can own. He sets a limit on land ownership and says you can only be a citizen if you own land, even if you weren't born in Athens. So Solon changes the rules. So as you'll recall from the last unit on Sparta, there were 4 groups that couldn't be citizens: women, children, slaves, people born in other places. Well, Solon says women, children, slaves, you're still not citizens. But if you were born somewhere else, you could be a citizen if you own land. So Solon is kind of catering to people that move to Athens. So it's about this time I think I show you a meme, because it is so messed up that once again, women, kids, slaves, not considered citizens. So here's our meme. When you call your government a democracy, and we'll get to democracy, even though 10% can vote. So yeah, messed up for sure. So people that do that are as smart as this guy, Homer, who we know is not that smart. All right. So Athens has an assembly. So that's where all citizens have the power to pass laws. Now, under Draco, remember Draco, as you just learned, had that horrible law that said if you can't pay your bills, you become a slave. Well, Solon gets rid of that. He says that if you couldn't pay your bills and are currently a slave because you couldn't pay your bills, you are now free. Now, hold on. Before we give Solon too much praise, something to think about. That was only for the people that couldn't pay their bills. If you were a slave for any other reason, he doesn't free you. So, I mean, good for the people that were forced into slavery because they couldn't pay their bills, but Solon didn't fully do the job there because there were still lots of people that were slaves. Solon also orders fathers to teach their sons a trade, like how to do something, to improve education among Athenians. And you're going to see Athens is all about education. Now, you might be thinking all right, there's some issues with Solon, but overall doesn't seem too bad, right? Well, here's what happens. Under Solon, more Athenians get involved in the government and trade increases. Artisans from all over Greece start moving to Athens because they could be a citizen there if they bought land. But Solon makes some people angry. The rich didn't like Solon because they thought his changes, his reforms, which are changes, went too far. They don't like that he has these new rules about land ownership because it's making more people citizens. And you might be thinking, well, why does the rich care if more people are citizens? Well, because they're the only ones that can be citizens right now. And the rich are the more people that join us, the weaker my power is because they're super selfish. The poor don't like Solon because they thought his reforms didn't go far enough. The poor are we still can't be citizens because we can't afford land. So, good idea, Solon, but not too good for us. Only landowners could be citizens, so the poor are left out of the citizenship equation. So you have the rich saying, Solon, you've gone too far. Too many people are becoming citizens now. That was just for us. And then you have the poor saying, come on, Solon, we can't be citizens because we don't own land. That's not fair. And the middle class is like, life is good. So what ends up happening is the People Revolt. And the leader of this revolution is this guy, Pisistratus. Oh, before I get to Pisistratus, let's kind of recap Solon down here on the chart. So Solon got rid of Draco's laws, those horrible laws like making someone a slave if they couldn't pay their bills. He creates the world's first ever constitution, which is just rules for how you're going to govern written down. He says you have to own land to be a citizen. Mixed feelings on that because, like, okay, so yeah, more people can be citizens, but what about the people that can't afford land? They're still not citizens. Outsiders, people born outside of Athens, could be citizens if they could buy land. And unfortunately, women, children, slaves, and the poor could not be citizens. The poor can't be citizens because they couldn't afford land. So Solon gets a mixed reviews, the People Revolt, Pisistratus leads the revolution, and he is the new leader. And he has a lot of support for the poor. And the reason from the poor, and the reason the poor liked him is he says there should be even more limits on who should own land. And he forces the rich to sell pieces of their land to farmers who didn't own any land. So he's helping some of the lower class become citizens. He also helps everyone, except women, children, and slaves, unfortunately, by saying, in Athens, you no longer have to own land to be a citizen. So Pisistratus takes Solon's rule about land ownership and flushes it right in the toilet that doesn't exist because it was destroyed with the Minoans. So under Pisistratus's Athens, women, children, and slaves still couldn't be citizens, but there was an opportunity for everybody else with that. Now, when Pisistratus dies, this is like, some of you are going to find this funny. His sons make a humongous mistake. So they take over. He had these two sons that take over, and Athens was in good shape. So they start bragging and running their mouth and sending official messages to Sparta like, if we wanted to take over Sparta, we could. And you know Sparta does not like being threatened. So Sparta's like, what'd you say? And Pisistratus' sons are like, we said if we wanted to take over Sparta, we could. So Sparta's like, that's what I thought. And they march on over to Athens, murder the sons of Pisistratus, look around Athens and say, anybody else want to mess with us? And the Athenians are like, no, we're good. And Sparta's not conquerors. They killed the sons of Pisistratus, and then they go home. They leave Athens. And it's kind of a lesson of the brutality of Sparta. The new leader that is chosen is this guy, Kleisthenes, and he's smart enough not to anger the Spartans. So let's recap Pisistratus here. So the poor and middle class love Pisistratus. The rich, not so much. He said you no longer had to own land to be a citizen, so a lot more people got to be citizens, but unfortunately, that still doesn't include women, children, and slaves. So Kleisthenes is the new leader of Athens, thanks to the idiot moves by Pisistratus' sons. And here's what Kleisthenes did. So he makes the world's first democratic constitution, giving all citizens equality. Now I need to explain this. He's the first person to say everyone that is a citizen should be equal. But there's a catch there. Because women, children, and slaves are not citizens, so they're not considered equal. So this is the first time in history you have a leader saying citizens should be equal, but as you know, critics of this time period, we have to keep an open eye and say, well, yes, but women, children, slaves, still not treated equally, still not okay. Now, he also creates something that exists today, and that is freedom of speech. Now, Very, very, very important lesson to know regarding freedom of speech. You have the right to say whatever you want, but you are responsible for what you say. And I'm going to give you a prime example. Let's say one of you decided to curse me out in class. I know you would never. I hope you would never. But we'll just go with this for this example. And, you're meeting with the principal and the vice principal, and they're talking to you, and you're like, well, I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want, freedom of speech. But that doesn't mean you don't get in trouble for what you say. That doesn't mean you don't get detention or suspension or things like that. You have the right to say whatever you want, but you are responsible for what you say. And this is an important lesson that people learn all the time when they think, oh, freedom of speech, I could say whatever I want. But then there's consequences for what they say, like when their employer finds out what some of the things they say, they get fired. So yeah, and that's the same deal in ancient Greece. You could say whatever you want, but you are responsible for what you say. Freedom of speech does not make you immune to consequences. All right. So in Athens, all males over 20 who were citizens are part of the assembly that passed the laws. And every year, the assembly elects 10 generals to run the army and navy and serve as judges. And one of these generals is given the nickname Commander-in-Chief. Now, in the United States government, as you know, the president is given that title, Commander-in-Chief. So you're going to start to see some similarities between the U.S. because if you didn't know, our government system of the United States takes the idea of democracy from ancient Greece and the idea of republics from ancient Rome and takes like the greatest hits from both of them and forms the government we have today. Now, Kleisthenes also formed something called the Council of 500. Now listen to this. This seems a little nutty, but this was the thing. The Council of 500 are 500 people, and they run the city of Athens. But the way that they're chosen is every year they put the names of every single citizen in Athens into a huge pot and pick out 500 names. It's chosen by what's called lot or random lottery. And then if you're one of the 500 people picked, you're running Athens with 499 others in this Council of 500. And they kept track of things. You could be on the Council of 500 twice in your life. And once your name was chosen twice, it didn't go in the pot anymore. So you could be in the Council of 500 when you're 23 and then again when you're 53. Depending on when, or like 23 and 24, and then you're done for the rest of your life. And some people obviously died before their names were chosen, or names were chosen twice. Now, here's why the Athenians did this. The Athenians chose 500 people this way because they're a little arrogant. They say elections aren't fair because the people that are rich have an unfair advantage, and the people that are good public speakers have an unfair advantage. And they say, we're Athens. We are all smart enough to run things. Therefore, you could put all our names into a pot and pick out 500. It doesn't matter which 500 they are because they're all Athenians. Therefore, they're all smart and great. That Athens is a little full of themselves, a little bit. In times of war, one of the 10 generals was automatically on the Council of 500, even if he had served twice, because they need somebody that knows like warfare and leadership and things like that. All right. So, Athenian citizens had to send their sons to school. Public schools don't exist, So in Athens, they either had to pay for private school or hire a private tutor. School in Athens started at age 7, and the boys learned all subjects. Girls, unfortunately, were not allowed in Athenian schools. I mean, again, I know we said this, reason number 700,015 why the ancient people are sexist. So the girls would like stay at home and learn certain stereotypical things like cooking and cleaning and sewing from their moms. Now, when the boys turned 18, they became full citizens and swore an oath at the temple of Zeus. And this is where we get the kind of idea that 18 is an adult. We got it from Athens. And this is what they're swearing: to make Athens a better place, to show honor in battle, to follow the Constitution, and to respect the gods. And the Athenians did these things because they swore at the temple of Zeus, and you don't want to make Zeus angry. So, looking at our list now, focusing on Kleisthenes, he created the world's first democratic constitution. He created the idea of freedom of speech. He creates the Council of 500, which are those 500 citizens chosen randomly by lot, which is a random lottery, that run Athens for the year. And he creates a government that has 10 generals to run the army and navy. So there you see 4 big leaders in Athenian government and how Athens government is different, way different than Sparta, and pretty unique. So there we go.